So I think it's fair to say that Polaroid SX-70 film doesn't handle temperature extremes terribly well. And I'll show you how I found that out. I live in Winnipeg, Manitoba in Canada, and winter generally lasts from around mid-October till possibly mid-April or extending into May perhaps. And the temperatures are probably going to dip down to minus 25 degrees centigrade or colder at times. But generally you're not going to find the temperatures much above 0 degrees centigrade at all. So it's something we have to live with, and I certainly don't want to pack away my SX-70 camera for that length of time and wait for summer to come along. So anyways, here's how I found out that SX-70 film doesn't work terribly well. I was out, we were walking our dog, and I decided to take my first Polaroid SX-70 camera, which is the Alpha 1 Model 2, just a standard camera, loaded up with SX-70 monochrome film, and went out, just had this camera in my pocket, and decided to take a few pictures. What I did is I just took the pictures and just stuck them into my pants pocket, and that was about the extent of it, knowing full well that I wouldn't be able to take a look at those pictures for another 15 minutes. I believe the temperature around that time was fairly modest for early December. It was like around maybe 0 degrees centigrade, maybe a tiny bit higher than that. Like I said, there was just a fresh snowfall at that point, so it couldn't have been much warmer than that. Anyways, I got back home and took a look at my pictures, which I thought were going to be nice and glorious. These are the types of pictures that I got. This is a picture of the dog walking down the trail, and you can see it's particularly dark, and also you can notice that at the corners here that there's the processing chemicals, the goo that flows through was not evenly done during the process of development. And here's another picture, again, same level of darkness, over darkness I would say, not what I was expecting at all. And again, you get the sort of the uneven development here at the bottom. It's even more evident in this picture. And that's perfectly fine. I mean, I posted these on Instagram and on my blog post on walkclickmake.com. And I think generally, people kind of thought these were kind of neat. They had a sort of I guess an old school atmosphere to them, using some sort of vintage process, and they looked kind of in their own little way kind of unique. And that's great, except that's not really what I was after. I wanted my snow to be white, like what I was seeing, not looking like this. So I realized that I had to do some investigation and come up with a better system of taking pictures for the rest of the wintertime in Canada. That led me to several experiments along the way, and what I'm going to show you right now is we're going to head outside, and I'm going to show you what is working for me. So let's head outside now. Okay, so here we are in a relatively balmy Winnipeg afternoon in mid-February. The temperature right now is about minus 1 degree Celsius, so really not all that bad for this time of year. Anyway, so here's my setup for taking cold weather photography in Manitoba. First of all, I got my base layer, which is just my sweater, my t-shirt. The camera stays against that body to keep it warm, to keep the camera warm. Around my neck, I have my SLR 670S by Mint camera, which has a time machine attached to it, which allows me to manually control the shutter speeds on the camera. That is suspended. What I'm using for my strap is just a Peak Design strap that I happen to have on hand, so I can shorten it to keep it up close to my body, in the warm part of my body right there. Okay, so the first thing you want to do, that I do, is if you have this camera, is to take this off when you're hanging it around your neck. And I'll get to that in a moment, why I do that. Now, around my neck right here, I have a little passport container that I had meant for around your neck that I have, and this is to put my film in after I've exposed it, and keeps it under my arm right here and keeps it nice and warm. And the point of this is that then it allows me to put more than one picture right here. It also allows me to walk around without having to worry about trying to keep a loose piece of film there under my arm. So it's like a convenient little warm package there, and it works really well. So that's basically that. Now let's get some clothes on right here because it is getting cold. So my first layer over top of this is a fairly light down vest, and that gets strapped up. This one happens to be a Mont Bell from Japan that I picked up while I was in Japan. It's really quite nice for backpacking purposes. Then what's doing the real heavy duty right here is my vintage Eddie Bauer parka. Very hefty jacket, well insulated down jacket, and I do that up right there, and you can see that it's got lots of little pockets all over the place to store stuff, including, you know, well, what have you, my mitts, my hats, and these days, of course, my Purell as well, and maybe a mask in here. Anyways, that's it. That's my thing. Now, on the inside, this little mint time machine thing, it gets held in here in this little pocket. And the reason I don't leave it on the camera and I put it in there, in that little pocket, is that, and I learned this the hard way, is that the time machine, it's only held on to the camera by this little tab that fits into the flash adapter on the SX-70 camera. And as you're walking along, jigging along, it will fall off. And that happened to me the first time I went out to take pictures in the cold. I was about 20 minutes into my walk, pulled out my camera to take a picture, and this thing was gone. It was missing. It had fallen off. Anyways, frantically I ran back. It was about 10 minutes running back, and luckily found this thing lying on top of the snow, and saved the day essentially. But I was a little bit perturbed at that because I had just gotten this camera and already losing the thing that makes it work. Anyway, so that's why I keep that in this little side pocket right here instead of having it hang around my neck. So we got that. Now, the other thing is, if you're using the Mint camera, is that because it's manual control, you'll need some way of metering, so you'll want to carry around a meter of some sort. It could be an app on your iPhone, for example. There's plenty of those, and I'm hoping to do a little special about exposure meters in a future video. Anyways, this is what I'm using. I've had this for a long time. It's a Pentax Spot Meter 5, which I really like for, especially with the manual camera. It allows me to take a very 1 degree spot reading out there, so I can read the shadows, I can read the bright snow out there, and find out where the exposure should lie. So let's run through a scenario right here. I've taken my readings right there, and I found out that at f8, which is the aperture of the camera, I should be using a speed of 250, 1/250th of a second. So I open up my jacket right here, I pull out my time machine, get it set up for 1/250th, so I just have to pop it on. From here on in is to try to do things as quickly as possible so you can take the camera out from under your warm clothes, take the picture and get it back in, and also get the pictures back into the little container there. So let's do that. Open up my jacket, pull out the camera, put on the time machine, open it up. There we go. Focus. And then take that, And the first thing I do before I do anything is I take this film and I stick it in my little passport wallet here underneath my coat, right there. And then, of course, then fold this up quickly, take out the time machine, stick it back in, back up there, time machine in a little pocket, get the coat done up, and finally get on some warm gloves because my hands are already starting to chill out here. And there we are. And now we're off, walk along to another scene, take another picture, and so on. And you know, I found that you can probably take an hour-long trip, walk like this, and the camera stays nice and warm against your body, and certainly the film stays nice and warm under your arm. So, anyways, I think that's a wrap. So I think it's time for me to get back inside the warm house. So, welcome back to my cozy, warm studio. As I mentioned outside, I was using my Mint 670 SLR 670S with the time machine attachment, which allows me full control over the shutter speeds. Essentially gives me full manual control over the camera. However, I mean, the whole thing still would work with a standard SX-70 camera, and you just have to more or less guess as to where you should be placing the exposure compensation dial to adjust for the brightness of the snow in your pictures. And that's where the advantages of using this particular camera with a good exposure meter comes in, as you can pin that down more accurately, more quickly, and less waste of film. Anyway, so just to give you a little bit of an overview of the pouch I was using. As I said, I'm really not too sure what the original purpose of this pouch was. I suspect it was used for passports. It has a couple of zippered pouches here, which I don't use. Basically what I'm doing is I'm just sticking the exposed pictures, SX-70 pictures, inside this open slot here. And that's why it's tucked under my shoulder. The strap itself, I just tied that off to make it a little bit shorter so it'll hold the pouch tight under my underarm, and so that just goes there, and you can see how it just sits there nicely. And I mean, that's really good too, because if it's a standard practice. A lot of people know this about using SX-70s, is that the best place to hold your SX-70 pictures in cold weather is under your arm, but just holding them loose is going to be, it's kind of awkward. And then if you're doing a bunch of pictures, of course, then trying to hold more than one piece of film under your arm is going to be pretty much impossible. So that's where this pouch really comes in handy. So definitely a good idea. You might have to search around some travel stores to find something that is somewhat like this and see what works for you, or maybe like I do, you happen to have this kicking around the house. Now this is using then the underarm pouch. One of the earlier pictures I've done with that, this is at a -7 degrees Celsius, or centigrade as I like to call it, temperature at 1/500th of a second. And I think this really turned out well. You can see there's no physical defects to the picture itself. And because I'm using my Mint camera with an exposure meter, I was able to zero in on the snow the way I like it, so that it looks like snow. It's not too dark or anything like that. And the whole picture, I think, turned out quite well. As with a lot of when you get a good, successful SX-70 picture, it has a depth to it, a luminosity that I think maybe comes across because there's 13 different layers underneath that polyester cover sheet, that it really has a real depth to the pictures that I like quite a bit. And of course the blacks are quite nicely exposed, nice and dark, good color on it, everything. These are the two pictures. Well, this is the picture that I took that you saw me taking outside for the demonstration. And my normal process now is, when I'm taking pictures outside, is I'll take an exposure that I think is best for the snow, and expose for that. But then I'll take another picture that is at a one stop higher shutter speed. In other words, if this first picture was taken at an f 1/500th of a second, for example, then the second picture was taken at 1/1000th of a second. Just basically covering my bases to give me a few more options. If you're going to the trouble of going out there, then it seems to me it's worthwhile exposing at least one extra sheet just to of film, just to zero in on the right exposure. And I think in this particular case, it just worked out better going with the darker picture, the second picture that I took. Even though the snow got darker than I was wanting, the exposure for the houses in the background there were much better, and I think that was what carried the day. So these are the kinds of things that you have to experiment with. Now, this is a picture taken at -2 degrees centigrade or Celsius, and this is taken on one of our frozen river paths on the Assiniboine River, right very close to Assiniboine Park here in Winnipeg. And it was a very nice day. Snow is falling, and you can see that there's quite a lot of haze in the background. This picture, I think, turned out really quite well. First of all, technically, it turned out quite well. There's no technical defects to the picture at all. And the snow pretty much turned out exactly where I wanted it to. And the blues are quite luminous. So the whole picture is quite luminous. It's something that I really like about the Polaroid SX-70 pictures is that they do have that depth that you have to see the pictures actually and handhold them to really experience them. You can't really experience them when they're just, let's say, shown on a computer screen after you scan them or something like that. They just flatten out just like any other picture that you might take. So there's a certain special quality to these little framed prints that come out of the camera. Here's another picture taken on that same trip. And I should mention too that I think you have to go out there with a new roll of film, which gives you 8 exposures, and expect that that's all you're not going to be reloading out in the field. It's going to be too cold to do that. I think by the time you take out a film cartridge and put in a new film cartridge, your film probably will have gotten too cold by that point, and you may end up having problems with your with your development and just basically technical problems with your finished print. I have done experiments at colder than -7 or 8 degrees centigrade. I would say probably using this system, -10 is the comfortable limit for using the underarm system and the camera inside the parka and the vest. Once you get below that, this picture was taken at about -25 degrees Celsius, and I started to develop a lot of technical problems with the picture at this point. First of all, you see there's some vertical streaks of white showing uneven development, and I'm also getting little white pinpricks showing throughout the picture as well, and none of which is what I want in my picture. So I'm not too sure if it really works. I could try taking the pictures with a heavier vest. In other words, replacing the yellow vest with a heavier vest that would keep the camera a little bit warmer. That's about all I can do, but I think just the process of bringing the camera out at that low a temperature, in the time it takes to take a picture and get the film out and put in the pouch under your arm, that it's long enough at that cold temperature for development to slow down and problems to happen in the development process. So I'm not too sure if I'd actually get any better results. And I must say, at -25, it's not just the camera and the film that's having problems. It's my fingers are having problems as well. And it doesn't take very long before your fingers start to go numb at that temperature, taking them in and out of gloves in order to take a picture. So it doesn't work for me as much as it doesn't work for the camera and the film. Anyways, I think that's it. I hope this is helpful. I know it's in a way, it's kind of a simple kind of thing. Hopefully, just going through the process and understanding a bit more, maybe you'll get a sense of maybe how you can avoid some of the problems that that can happen with Polaroid film in cold weather. And so I just wish you the best in taking your own cold weather pictures wherever you happen to be, and hopefully all this will be helpful to you in that process. Okay, till next time, bye-bye.